Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Tri-F Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. And today you've got to deal with my ugly mug yet again. So we have been going over the Mike Winger video regarding Shawn Bolz, and we had stopped last time where we were going through the evidence during the live stream. We went through the evidence of basically Shawn Bolz faking his prophecies by getting on Facebook and looking up background information. So today we are going to continue reacting to Mike Winger's video, and I don't know if we're going to go through the whole thing because it is 6 hours long, but we're going to try to get through as much as we can. And then hopefully next week, Bethel will have a response that was a little more substantive than, I guess, the previous week's response. So we're kind of holding out to see how Bethel responds to this whole thing. If they don't respond to it, we'll just go through their initial service. But we wanted to continue looking at Mike Winger's video and see what all he has to say after the Facebook debacle. So with that being said, let us get started.
Stopped this from happening in the first place, but they could also have easily done something to bring that kind of healing from within the church, right? From believers. They could have brought that kind of healing to Jubilee and so many others, because even as this video goes out, there's new people finding out, because even though this stuff's been exposed, it's just that the platforms aren't big enough. What we need is Bill Johnson to make a statement about Shawn, specifically that it's true. It's all true, right? Not the horrible statement that they actually made, which I will be reading later on, but that it's actually true, and tell us what you actually know. But they won't do it. It's always damage control. It's a PR. It's like talking to human resources is dealing with these guys, and it's just
Last week we did look at their website, and it did seem very corporate. So I'm not super surprised that their response, regardless of whether they felt Shawn Bolz was innocent or guilty, was going to be very corporate and very oriented in, or just sound a lot like a PR campaign. That's, yeah, if their website is any indicator, that's a pretty typical response.
And it's abusive to people. Speaking of abuse to people, we're going to talk about Shawn's sexual deviancy now. Sexual deviancy and sexual harassment, and I would think it classified as clergy sexual abuse. So I interviewed 3 eyewitnesses from Shawn's ministry, his former employees, 3 eyewitnesses. I'm going to tell their stories in specific detail, and this is going to be gross, and it's going to be inappropriate for kids, and you're free to skip past it if you want. Again, there's timestamps down below. You can just skip right past this section, but I'm going to get into it, and we're going to talk about it in detail. All 3 of them reported very significant things. Instances of Shawn's nudity, in unwanted, forced nudity in various scenarios, and his self-pleasuring, I'll call it, in front of people who were not welcoming it. They assure me there are at least 12 victims that they're aware of. 12 that they are aware of, from people who all were under Shawn's influence, under his authority in some sense, who he did this kind of stuff to. And their testimonies span over a decade, well over a 10-year period of time, these 3 witnesses can attest to. And so this means that we're talking about stuff that was happening before 2005, and it was happening all the way into the late 2010s, and by all reasonable expectation is still happening today. I would anticipate. There's no reason to think otherwise, because he's lying and deceiving and denying. So why would you think that something has suddenly changed and improved? Bill Johnson and Bethel leadership knew about this for nearly 5 years, at least, that they knew about these things. Multiple witnesses. Now, they mentioned in their letter one.
Okay, so I want to be very careful here, because obviously if something really did happen to these people, you want justice to be done for them. But strictly speaking, just because this guy's a liar about the prophecy thing, that doesn't mean everything else is true. It doesn't bode well in his favor either. But we're just going to have to kind of see what they have to say and kind of evaluate it.
Witness. They knew about more than one, actually. We'll go through that letter later. So they knew. Now, what these guys describe, what the three men I spoke with describe, is sexually domineering behavior. I would call it grooming. I think it qualifies. And deviancy, that is a person who is disqualified from ministry, certainly is not a prophet. And it's sick and dark. And we'll get into it. So long ago, Shawn, before he was married, would have group homes where he would be the guy that was in charge of the property, like it was his house or he's renting it or whatever. And then he had a group of young men who would live with him. And so one of these group homes was in LA, and Shawn rented this house. It was about 7 men that lived in the house with him, all young men in their 20s. Shawn was older than all of them. He's 51 now. So he was older than all of them. And it was, according to one witness, it was, quote, like a Christian frat house. That was kind of what it was like. And also, quote, Shawn was always trying to get us naked. That's a theme with Shawn. Shawn has a voyeuristic desire to be seen naked, it seems, from multiple witnesses. And as a Christian, I'm supposed to take the consistent testimony of multiple witnesses, which doesn't have any like red flags of being false or something like that. And then it seemed, then they're confirming one another. And anyway, I got more than 3 actually witnesses I can share. You'll see, it's all coming.
Now, I do want to take a point here to mention that Mike Winger is being a little more careful about his criterion for whether or not this man is guilty than at least one other individual on YouTube that I've seen. They've been using the scripture of at least 2 or 3 witnesses before you take a charge seriously. Now, in my opinion, obviously Paul is not saying it literally needs to be 2 or 3 witnesses, because that wouldn't make any sense. I mean, obviously, whenever when somebody wants to basically throw anybody out of a position or out of a running for something, one of the go-to tactics is to make sexual or SA allegations. And, very often they'll pile up a bunch of fake victims. They'll pile up like 33 victims. So it's not enough to just have 2 or 3 witnesses, and that needs to be pointed out. Now, to Mike's credit, what he's saying is, he's paying attention to the testimony. He's looking to make sure that, these eyewitness accounts, kind of verify each other. He's looking for other commonalities. So there's that. I just wanted to make the point that it is not enough to just sit there and say, well, we've got 3 witnesses or whatever, and therefore the charge is valid. Like, it does take more than that. And Mike is saying that. So I just wanted to point that out. Or at least I should say Mike is being very careful about he's being more careful about his wording. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right. So they say Shawn was always trying to get us naked. Shawn would send pictures of his private parts to guys. He'd send photos, and he tried to create a culture where that was normalized. One thing Shawn does is he wants to bring other people, it seems, to his level of sexual depravity. So he's trying to create an environment where that stuff is normalized. He often talked about the size of his self, and he would talk about it being larger than the other men's. And then he would use this in a sort of a domineering fashion, it seems. The guys had conversations about Shawn. This is back, we're talking many years ago. They would have open conversations about Shawn. Maybe he's gay. Maybe he's gay. I don't know. Some things he does. Maybe he's gay. But it was confusing to them because he would talk about sexual purity all the time. Now, Shawn would claim he was a virgin. He was not married until he was an older guy, and he was single at this time. And he said he was a virgin. And he would say things like, if anybody on the team is caught using pornography, then they're kicked out of the ministry. He would say this, right? But this was confusing because then he would display himself and do other things. We'll get into that in a minute, more of that in a minute, about the self-pleasuring stuff. And so they were confused. And of course it's confusing. You're with a sick, demonically controlled pervert. That I don't know another way to call it. You're certainly not controlled by the Holy Spirit when you're getting up and speaking in God's name, doing these things. Anyways, this one witness I spoke to, he was told by Shawn, hey, go get my phone or whatever. He grabs Shawn's phone and he sees gay pornography on the phone. This shocked him, and he showed it to another guy so that the two of them could go and confront Shawn. Hey, what is the deal with this? We found this on your phone. Now, Shawn's own standards are very high, verbally at least, and so they came and asked him, what is the deal here? Shawn's response, according to him, was, it was a joke. That he deliberately looked up gay pornography, left it on his phone visible so that this guy would find it as a way of messing with him. Do you believe that? I don't believe that. Prior to this is in the LA home that he had with 7 guys. Prior to this, I'm told that Shawn had another group home in Alabama where 3 guys lived. This is even further in the past, before I have access to those people or those individuals. One witness from a much more recent time, again, I told you this spans from 2005 to the late 2010s. So one from a more recent time said that Shawn would regularly go to a Korean spa, a specific Korean spa in LA, and he would walk around there naked. He just strip down and walk around there naked. He was always trying to get the other guys to join him at the spa. Some of those watching this video, Shawn has done this to you. And if you need counseling, or if you need to talk to somebody, that's good, man. You can recover from this. You can get over this. You can overcome this, and you'll be stronger for it in the end. And there's help for you. So you could reach out to my ministry. I'm not offering to pay for counseling for every random person that watches this video, but if you're a victim of Shawn Bolz and you reach out, we want to help you out, okay? No strings attached. There's so much more. So the things that these guys described, these witnesses, and in full agreement with each other, and separately, I've interviewed them separately, and there's corresponding details. So the things that they describe reveal a pattern of Shawn's grooming, sexual domineering, and unwanted sexual harassment. Let me give some examples. One of the men on his first trip with Shawn, he had been warned prior to the trip that Shawn likes to be naked in the hotel room. Now, he thought it was a joke. He thought the guy was telling a joke, and he goes, is there anything I need to know about Shawn? He goes, well, he likes to be naked in the hotel room. And he was like, okay. And he thought he was joking. Was not true. It was not true that it was a joke. It was just a fact. So when they get to the hotel room, within minutes, Shawn just strips his clothes off. And this becomes part of a pattern of trapped conditions. Shawn, in conditions where people are trapped, they're stuck with him, that's when he takes advantage. So he pulls his clothes off and he's just walking around naked. Then things got worse. I'll walk through the timeline of this a little bit more later, but he at one point woke up to Shawn pleasuring himself, and then Shawn just started doing it all the time. And it was in these trap conditions. They're traveling. They're in a hotel room. They're in a car. One of them, he's in a car when it happens. I'll talk about that. This is the pattern with him. Ongoing, continual, repeated pattern for many years of doing these sort of things with guys in trapped conditions without consent. Now, consent wouldn't make it okay. It would still be morally wrong. But it is different when you take away consent and you go, you're his boss, you're his spiritual leader, you're the guy who's footing the bill, and you're doing this. One time, one of the guys very boldly said, because he was upset about it, and Shawn was, again, naked on the top of the covers of his bed, and he was doing this stuff to himself. And he says, if you're going to do that, go into the stinking bathroom, although he didn't say stinking. And Shawn replied, you go to the bathroom if you don't like it. I'm paying for the room and travel. One of the gentlemen who was back then experiencing these things actually took a video of Shawn doing this. Not as a way of delighting in it, but probably as a way of, I'm guessing, to try to get control of his life. Because it's oppressive. It's oppressive. It's domineering and oppressive for him to do this to them. This is, in my opinion, it's sexually abusive. So he takes this video of it and then just shows it to another one of the guys in the group. And he's like as a way of saying, look at this is so wrong and disgusting. Now, some of you are thinking, I don't understand how this can happen. Like, if you've never been in an environment of, like, say, a really toxic home, a really bad scenario, really unhealthy relationships, then yeah, you don't understand how this can happen because you've never seen it happen before. But this stuff happens all the time. And it usually takes people a long time to get out of it and then to sort of detoxify from the environment, where they start to realize how they were brought through a deliberate path. I'll talk about the pathway that Shawn uses, through a deliberate path to get them to the place where they were vulnerable enough where someone could do this to them. And And it is understandable. Anyways, Shawn would give justifications. According to the witnesses, he would say things like, I'm a prophet, I need release. So this is why he can pleasure himself in front of other people without their consent, is partly because he is a prophet. He needs release. Now, I want you to think about what it means to tie your supposed prophetic gifting to your disgusting sexually perverted behaviors. What does that mean about your soul? What does that mean about the nature of this guy? About him exposing himself, he said that was, quote, normal stuff that happened between guys in locker rooms. That was what I've been told. That he would use the locker room excuse as a regular way of sort of deferring, like, oh, that's just normal. What I exposing myself, that's normal locker room stuff, guys. I don't think that is normal locker room stuff, guys, but I also think that Shawn is not a locker room guy. In the first place, take a look at the guy. He's not exactly been in a lot of locker rooms doing a lot of sports things. He likes to surround himself. He has a type of guys he likes. He likes young, athletic guys to be serving alongside of him. That's true. But he has not been the athletic guy. He just likes them. He would tell people who confronted him that they were being religious. He actually tried to convince one of my witnesses that something was wrong with him because he was bothered by Shawn's behavior. Well, you're religious. You're too bound up by religion. You have spirit of religion. That's why you don't want me to be fondling myself. You don't want me to be doing these things that I'm doing in front of you. Now I want to talk about how it impacted one of my witnesses, because this has been a consistent story I've heard. It led him to suicidal ideation and eventually PTSD episodes while there. He received a lot of counseling and has improved a lot. But even this video is something that is going to be challenging for him to deal with, and he's working through it. And I had to make sure, are you sure you're okay with me sharing these things? I don't want to do anything that's going to bring harm to you. And hopefully it's part of his healing, because finally people are going to know the truth. Something he tried to make happen, but it didn't happen because Shawn's board wouldn't listen, because the leadership at Bethel and other individuals would not listen. They wouldn't do anything to stop him. They would just distance themselves from him and tell others, ooh, watch out for Shawn. There's witnesses in the wings ready to come forward. You wouldn't want to be around him. That's the message that I think went out. That's how I think it really went. So a common thing among guys I talk to is these like suicidal ideation or just PTSD, or basically they experience a lot of nasty, sick trauma from a guy who's supposed to be a prophetic leader. A different witness. Let me tell you about a different guy's story. Shawn got in the backseat of the car all of a sudden with this employee and just started doing his thing, pleasing himself, right? I don't want to give more details. You know what that means. He was in the backseat of the car, all of a sudden just climbs back there and just does this with him right there in the front without permission or consent or something like that. Again, consent doesn't make it okay, but it makes it even worse to not have it. And he knew that this young man at the time, he was a victim of prior sexual abuse. And Shawn knew this about the man. You will find that a target person for somebody who is exhibiting the behaviors that we're hearing about, we're hearing Shawn exhibited, those kinds of people tend to target those who suffered abuse in the past because they're sort of more ready for it in the future. That's the sad reality, is that someone who abuses their child very often leads to that, say it's a girl, leads to that girl marrying an abusive man. They're primed for certain behaviors and certain relational dynamics. And so they target them. This is not a surprise, because Paul Cain, one of Shawn Bolz's mentors, and a guy who sought to protect Shawn when people were trying to expose.
All right, one of the things that we've been doing here whenever Mike Winger brings up a name is that we tend to try to look them up so people have a frame of reference. So let's say Paul Cain. All right, here we go. So Paul Cain was a prominent American Pentecostal charismatic minister known for his role in the healing revivals of the 1940s and 50s as a key figure in the later prophetic movement. He was recognized for a ministry focusing on word of knowledge and prophecy, significantly influencing neo-charismatic churches and the charismatic movement. Cain began preaching at a young age and was considered a leading figure in the Voice of Healing movement alongside figures like William Branham. The role of the charismatic movement following a period of withdrawal from public ministry He reemerged in the late 1980s and 1990s, becoming a prominent voice in the prophetic movement within charismatic circles, often partnering with organizations like John Wimber's Vineyard Ministries International. Significance: he was known for emphasizing personal prophetic words and accurate, detailed knowledge about individuals, which he claimed to receive through the Holy Spirit. Later life. In 2004, he was forced to step down from ministry leadership following revelations regarding moral failures, particularly alcohol abuse and sexual misconduct, which he later confessed to. So, that is Paul Cain. So, the people apparently that Bolz was running around with had a history of this, I guess. Of course, that doesn't mean he was guilty, but it's not looking good. So, yeah, there's Paul Cain. All right, just wanted to get a picture of that guy because I do not know these people, and so I assume other people don't as well. Therefore, I'm giving faces to names, or trying to. So, moving on.
Him earlier, who has since died. Thankfully, he's not around to protect Shawn now. Paul Cain would do this with his interns. He would hire multiple interns who were former homosexuals and then bring them in, and then they're repentant. They need guidance. They need spiritual leadership, but he would groom them and stuff. That's already been public. That's been public for a while now about Paul Cain, one of the supposed Kansas City prophets connected to Mike Bickle and all this, who had a hand in protecting Shawn and keeping him from getting exposed even earlier. So Shawn does this in the trapped car situation where he's driving and boom, he just does this all of a sudden. Then it was in hotel rooms. Then when he's challenged, he mocks the person challenging him, this employee who challenges him. He mocks him, he breaks him down. He talks about how he's the man of God and he's the prophet, and he's tearing down the walls systematically in this person's life to make it more normal. Shawn would insinuate himself in their lives so that they feel like he's involved in every part of their life. Every decision they make, they have to talk to Shawn about it. They have to get his wisdom and his guidance on everything. He's like a mentor. He's also an employer. He's like their best friend. He's also their landlord. This incredible, like, cult-like connection that he has with people, and then connects it to these intimate, perverse things. And then if you don't like it, he shames you and he spiritually berates you over it. Another thing this particular witness told me is Shawn, and I'll just read what he said, loved to whip his thing out and show it to everybody. This is an assertion of dominance. That's what this is. This is I believe this anyways, is an assertion of dominance. This is about power. And man, Shawn must like power. The power of being in a room and being the man of God who gets the word of God, the best prophet of our day. That you must like that power. The power of stripping down and exposing yourself and forcing that on other people. I think maybe that feels good in some disgusting way to him. And so let me talk to you about how he progresses. I think it's calculated. I think it's intentional. And after being a DV, domestic violence counselor for years, there's often progression when people get others into these really unhealthy, like deeply wicked relationships. It doesn't just go straight to it usually. Typically, it's a long, slow process to get somebody into the place where they're exposed to those things. For instance, you don't know that Shawn's going to do this to you until after you're already hired, after you've already got a paycheck coming in, after you're already in a hotel room and you're already trapped, and you've already come to think of him as this man of God. Then it happens, and that environment makes it difficult for you to do something about it. It's not impossible, but it makes it harder. Okay, so here's the progression. First trip, hotel room trip, within a minute of stepping into the room, Shawn is completely nude, walking around completely nude. From then on, it was going to be prolonged nudity. He would be nude for hours in the room. It's just anytime he's in the room, he is not wearing clothes. That was the normal thing that was going on at the time. He would also then ask for massages while he was not wearing clothes in the hotel room. Can you give me a massage? Oh, my back hurts. Oh, give me a massage, man. Come on, man. Come on. Dude, I'm not comfortable touching you with your back. Wait, you're a religious spirit, You need to let go of that religious spirit. Whatever it was, this kind of thing was going on. One time in particular, I'm sorry to even say this stuff out loud. Shawn was aroused physically standing over this person near him, and he was near him and wagging and saying, "Why won't you look at it? Why won't you look at it? Look at it." You see the progression? They're pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. Now, when the guy doesn't look, he goes, "Oh, I'm shaming you. You're not looking because you have this problem. You're not looking because you have that character issue or that fear or that insecurity. And that's the reason why you don't want to look at me." Let me talk about multiple moments of the self-pleasuring. Okay. So first time in a hotel room at 3:00 in the morning, this witness believes Shawn purposely woke him up, and Shawn is there doing his thing. Also, Shawn warns him around the same time. He says, "Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night jerking off." That's what he tells the guy. So this is him probably trying to cover his bases, cover his tracks, right? This is obviously not an accident. He's not sleepwalking. This is something he's doing deliberately. Second time, now he's in London. In London, Shawn is doing an event called God Secrets in London. And somehow, Shawn got them into the honeymoon suite at this hotel. They don't get a normal room. They get the honeymoon suite, him and his employee. And the honeymoon suite has a clear glass shower. And the guy's uncomfortable with this because he's for obvious reasons, right? So he actually showers in his shorts. He's that uncomfortable with the things that are going on. And they're together in the room the next morning. And now it's not wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, I sometimes do that. I wake up. He just asks the guy openly right there as they're hanging out in the morning. Morning is Shawn's time for this stuff. He says, "Do you care?" Shawn asked him, "Do you care if I jerk off?" The guy does not give permission. Shawn just does it anyways. All the way, everything. Again, he's doing a conference called God Secrets in London. The third time, I want to show the progression here from nudity to engaged nudity to physical stuff, to say, "Oh, I was sleepwalking," to then asking permission, to finally, next time, he doesn't ask. He just starts. It's in the morning. He's on his bed, not wearing any clothes, on top of the covers, and just goes for it. This led to, for this gentleman, depression, trauma, suicidal ideation, different guy we're talking about here, counseling, long recovery. Again, if you're one of Shawn's victims, please reach out to my ministry, BibleThinker.org, and we will help you out. And a warning has to go out to Shawn's current team members, the people that are working with him now, the people that are around him now. He's obviously a very dangerous man. He probably should be brought up on charges. I'm not the law. I don't have that kind of power. And I'm not the witness, but I can warn the church. Hey guys, this is editing Mike coming in here. Sorry for this attire. Here's the thing. I was editing the video just now, and I noticed that I didn't mention something that I thought I did talk about, which is that one of the 3 former employees told me that the progression actually went to the point where, in his case, Shawn was doing this every morning. Like whenever they were traveling, every morning he would wake up in the room with Shawn, and he'd be nude, and he'd be performing to completion the perverse act. This was constant, continual, and who knows where the progression would have gone had any of these guys been, open to it. We just don't know the answer to that question, and it does need to be brought up, and that this does need to be pursued. This is insane, this stuff. I hope that somehow the ball gets rolling forward after this video to bring more accountability to Shawn. Now, there's more that all 3...
Okay, I think we're going to end it there. I am very glad that Mike specified that there is a commonality between the witness's testimony, because I don't... First of all, I'm not the law either, but I don't see how this guy hasn't been brought up on charges myself. I'm a little astonished by that. And I'll just start off by saying I think Shawn did do these things. To be clear, Shawn has denied all this. It seems more likely than not he did do it, considering the fact that I think Mike has done a pretty definitive job showing that he was lying on the prophecy stuff, and he was using Facebook and everything else. I think that's pretty clear. So he's already got a track record of lying. He doesn't really have any credibility in that department. It seems like he was around people that had a history of this. We looked at Paul Cain tonight, and the other people that we've looked up in prior episodes going over this kind of had a similar history of this kind of behavior. So he was around people, and he doesn't seem like the most honest person in the world. Those things don't exactly bode in his favor. I don't know how a church is supposed to verify this. I don't know what Bethel came up with. I'm just glad, but I am glad that, the only thing that I could think of is basically you would have to look at the witnesses and see if they've talked to each other and see if their stories match up. And Mike specified that he did that, and he's presenting the pattern from the various accounts, and I think that's a very good case. I'm glad that he made it a point to say that, because other people were, or at least one other person, I shouldn't say other people, one other person was going, hey, we have 3 witnesses, that's enough. It's like, well, no, you can't. You got to make sure the stories match. You got to there's more to it than just having 3 people make a charge. But Mike cleared that up. Anyway, so that's about all we're going to say on that. I think what we'll end up doing is we're going to do one more episode on this, covering how Bethel reacted to these charges, and I think that'll wrap up everything we need to say on this whole situation. So I'm going to stop here. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.